I was living in a house in Florida with 3 other guys. The house belonged to one friend, Jason. He had lived there with his family as a child before they moved to California and had moved back in with another friend, Carl, to attend college. Jason and Carl had been living in the house for about a year before I moved into the house with another friend, Mike. A few months before I moved in, I flew to Florida to visit Jason and Carl. I noticed a few strange things during my week-long visit. Figures moving in the corner off my vision, small items moving around, nothing I couldn't explain or chalk up to my imagination. It wasn't until after I moved in before I really started to notice the weirdness that was going on. A few days in, I had set up an air mattress in my room. I filled it completely with a little battery-powered pump and screwed on the cap tightly. We all went out to get some food and returned to find the air mattress completely deflated with the cap removed. The thing was flattened completely as though someone had sucked all of the air out. Anyone who has packed one of these up knows the trial of rolling the mattress up to get all of the air out so it will fit back in the box. I also continued to notice small things not being where I had left them, and continued to see figures in the corner of my vision. Specifically, I began to notice a featureless, child-sized shadow figure, but I never saw it directly. Only in reflections and at the edges of my vision. A reoccurring phenomenon I noticed was sometimes when I was taking a dump, there would be a soft knocking low on the bathroom door. One day the knocking was becoming insistent and I politely asked it to stop so I could finish in peace, and it stopped immediately. After a few weeks living there, I brought up the knocking and the shadow figure to Jason and Carl. This was the moment I knew I wasn't imagining things. They looked at each other with frightened expressions and told me that they had been experiencing the same things. Jason revealed that he and his brother had noticed them back when they were living in the house as children. Additionally, as children Jason and his brother used to hear disembodied giggling in the room that I was staying in. I have a number. There are some stories on my profile but one I haven't told yet. I went with a few friends to a place in Maine known as Devil's Footprint. It's an abandoned church and cemetery next to an open field. There's a stupid legend about a boulder there being marked with a footprint that cannot be removed, and multiple people have attempted to relocate the boulder and dying shortly after. Do I believe the legend? No. Do I believe in the paranormal? Firmly. This wasn't an official investigation, so I only had a digital camera with me. I started snapping photos with flash. This was around 10:30 p.m. and noticed almost every picture had an orange haze on it that made it appear as if everything was on fire. Is there a normal explanation for this? Probably, but it was unnerving. We started seeing distinct human-shaped shadows watching us and moving around in the tree line, to the point where I was so convinced they were real people. I moved my car to shine the headlights in that direction, but there was nothing. I started addressing the spirits to show themselves and we started to hear someone walking around inside the church building, which was locked. All 4 of us began to feel physically ill. One of my friends had a full-blown panic attack when she felt something touch her. Towards the end of the investigation, I firmly addressed whatever was there to show itself if it wanted us to leave, and my car, which was a good 100 yards away, shut off by itself. I checked it and the key had been physically turned to the off position. There was no way anyone got into the car fast enough for us to not see them. As I walked away from the car to rejoin my friends, it turned back on. Again, the key was now turned to the on position. We took the hint and left. Back in my senior year of high school, me and a few friends went and spent the night at another friend's place. We were all there for an early graduation party. They live out in the middle of the country, with the closest neighbor being at least a few miles out. So it was us 4, my friend whose place we were at, and their parents and nephew. We spent the day being outside, riding on an ATV and stuff. Once nighttime rolled around, we all piled into their room, which has a door. We didn't fall asleep until near 1 a.m. A little while later, maybe an hour or two later, I woke up with the need to pee. I managed to roll around until I was facing the door, which before we passed out, had been closed. Yet now it was wide open. I let my eyes focus on the doorway and saw that there was someone standing there. I froze in my spot on the floor, just watching this figure stand there. I could tell it was watching us, for whatever reason. Then I remember just laying back down and closing my eyes. Next thing I remember was waking up at around 7 or 8 am. We were all getting ready to be taken home by my friend's mom. I suddenly remembered what I saw last night, and made a comment about her or her husband coming to check on us in the middle of the night. She was confused, and said, "What are you talking about?" Then the father walked into the living room as we were all about to leave, and I noticed his height. He was much shorter than the figure from last night. I dropped the subject and just walked off. That was back in 2012, and to this day, I still don't know what it was I saw. I'm still not convinced when it comes to spirits / ghosts / whatever, but I did have one experience that made me think. My freshman year of college, I was laying in my dorm room. I was placed in the brand new hall on campus, and instead of shared, single rooms, ours entered to a communal room with 2 hallways. One branching to the left when you walk in, and the other to the right. Each hallway ended with a bathroom / shower and provided access to 2 private bedrooms. I was in my room waiting for a friend to come by. The door was locked as I'd been trying to get in a quick nap, but couldn't quite fall asleep. I'm laying in bed, looking out the window. I see my friend ride by on his way to my hall's entrance. A few seconds later, I hear my door open, which I know I had locked. I try to move but can't, then I try to yell. I couldn't even utter a sound. I then felt one long, intense scratch on the length of my back, top to bottom. It felt like how I would imagine 3 velociraptor claws cutting you to feel like. That's a very specific description, but is the only thing that comes to mind when I try describing it. I couldn't move for what felt like another minute or 2, then I suddenly snapped out of it. I got up and my door was still locked. I called my friend and he hadn't even gotten on his bike to leave his hall on the other side of campus. To this day, it still remains the only occurrence I've endured that I can't reconcile. Sleep paralysis, maybe. Only happened that one time, though. I was laying in bed having just woken up. I had been awake for about 20 minutes checking my phone but fully awake and alert. Suddenly a knock sounded on my bedroom door, a very strong and clear knocking. Thinking it was my best friend, I didn't say anything, knowing she would just barge in, but I also knew she wouldn't come over without texting to make sure I was home first. So I thought maybe it was my mom, but then remembered I had heard her leave for work hours earlier. The realization that I should be the only one home hit me hard and my anxiety took over. I threw on some shoes just in case I had to make a break for it and run outside and slowly began to sweep the house for any intruders. All the doors and windows were locked and undamaged with no sign of anyone in the house. But someone had clearly been knocking on my door. A few months later, I was coming home from a night out with family and was the first to make it back. I walked in the front door and was greeted by the sound of 2 people having a conversation down the hall. Thinking someone had broken in, I quickly ran back outside and locked myself in my car till my parents got home. No one could be seen in the windows or tried to leave, so when my dad began sweeping the house, I was sure we would find someone hiding out. But we never found anyone or any sign that someone had been in the house, even though I had clearly heard 2 people having a full conversation. Not the craziest or scariest story, but 100% true and 100% the reason why I don't like to spend the night alone in my own home. There was a summer during college when I stayed at my brother's place, a huge house. He rented it from an old rich couple who were living abroad. I stayed in a small bedroom. One night, I was woken up. I had a feeling something in the room was watching me. I was scared fleabless, and it was pitch dark. I had to stand up and moved along with my back against the wall to get to the light switch. It has been more than 10 years, but I still remember that moment. It felt like it lasted for hours. I knew there was someone, small with long hair, God knew why I felt that way, in the room with me watching me. I had to sleep with lights on that night and the next few weeks. Our mom came to visit us and she stayed in the same room. She was frightened right on the first night. Later, we found out that the old couple's little daughter died in that room.